So I'm not going to give you a lot of information or details about specific emerging trends, because I think one of the interesting things of being a tutor here is that you've got the freedom to look at things that you find interesting and that you think your students will find interesting in whatever international context you work in. For instance, I've given the example in the tutor resources of changes in political governance systems in the UK, one of which being the trend towards devolution, and how local authorities are getting much more autonomy and also budgetary control, making decisions that affect their local environment. Now, you may want to focus on something different if you're working in another national context. So just to give you some ideas of some of the examples you might want to use at the macro environmental level, different social changes, looking at increasing importance of health, problems of obesity, changes in population growth, migration patterns and so on. Economic macro environmental challenges, obviously, I mean the credit crunch, it's affected everybody. Technological changes, again in the tutor resources I give some examples, an example in particular which I think is really interesting is the growth of 3D printing, and potentially this could have massive ramifications on the whole of marketing and retailing if people can print off the products that they want to buy themselves in their own home. Imagine that, imagine being able to buy a pair of trainers and then print them off on a 3D printer. It would completely revolutionise marketing. Environmental challenges we're all familiar with, climate change for instance, or you might want to focus on the increasing problem of rubbish. That's something I know quite a lot about. Myself and my co-author, Dr. Stuart Roper at Manchester Business School, have been doing a lot of work looking at what happens to packaging once it ends up in the gutter and once it gets washed out into the ocean and ends up as a part of a gyre of rubbish that's floating around the North Atlantic. Again, this is a marketing problem. Without marketing, people wouldn't be buying the product, and then it wouldn't end up as a huge environmental problem as packaging wastage in the sea. Up until now, students will have been used to getting facts, figures and data and making predictions of change based on that in quite a structured fashion. I think in this module they need to start thinking in a much more blue sky manner and being far more creative in the way that they predict what's going to happen to sectors and industries and organisations. I've recommended a range of resources in the tutor resource pack, but I encourage you to find your own resources so that you can use your own examples with your students. I have recommended a book by Alvin and Heidi Toffler, the Revolutionary Wealth book, and I think this is a great book in terms of giving a bit of an introduction to all the emerging global trends and how they may impact on the business sector. What I would encourage you to do in terms of resources, ensure that the students get access to resources from many different disciplines. If you're going to look at changes in political governance systems, then go to the political science literature. And also make use of people that are either in your own institution or affiliated to your institution. For instance, at Manchester Met, we have scientists that have developed the world's most accurate lie detector. Luckily, they're not using it on us at work yet. However, this will have ramifications for industries like banking and insurance. So if I'm going to talk about this to my students, then it's best that I get the scientists in that have actually developed it, and then they can actually show the product to students. And it's a great way to engage my marketing students with a new emerging technology. One of the seminar activities that I've picked for this part of the module is to undertake a macro-environmental analysis of the petrochemical industry. There's some links in the tutor resources to interviews with various chief executive officers of companies like BP and Shell, who are all talking about how they're trying to move away from scarce natural resources and into alternative technologies. I think the thing to bring out in the seminar discussions here is what's really driving these changes in their business. Is it truly changes in what's available in terms of oil and so on? Or is it more a need to please a slightly more green consumer? and in which case, just how fundamental are the businesses changing and the business practices that they're adopting. So I think there's a lot of scope there for students to do their own research on these businesses in the sector, but also there should be quite a lot in the links that I've given you to ensure there's some lively class discussion.